Hi everybody, I'm Tim Harvey here at RPM Technik with Greg Daly, Sales Director, and I thought we'd bring you some special content today because I spotted in the showroom three really special cars. A 996 GT3 Clubsport manual, a 997 GT3 Clubsport manual, and a 991 GT3 Clubsport manual. So quite a rare collection of similarly spec cars.
We didn't need much persuasion to get them out of the showroom
No.
today, did we? So a good excuse to get the cars out, get them out on the road, have a listen to them and see the various merits of each vehicle. Let's have a look at them.
So Greg, let's start with the earliest, the 996 GT3. Tell us about this car and this model.
Yeah, so this particular one we've known for I think 8 years now. So I've sold this one a few times, it's like an old friend. As you said at the start, all three cars are Clubsports. So that comprises of, in this particular car, Nomex bucket seats, which were made by Recaro, battery cut-off switch, fire extinguisher, and obviously the cage in the back. This one obviously finished in a not to be missed speed yellow. You won't lose that in a car park. And this car also has the ceramic brakes. So in terms of the specification of what you could get, it is the ultimate. The car still retains climate control, which back in the day some of them had, some of them didn't. And this particular example, we've known, as I say, the last few owners of it. We've serviced it for nearly a decade, and it's arguably the best 996 GT3 I think we've ever seen, which is a big shout, but it's been in a few different collections over the years, so just sort of underlines the quality of this one.
It looks very original. Are there any modifications that are worth pointing out?
With the exception of a sticker next to the tyre valve, which you very observantly noticed earlier, no, it's totally original. So original suspension, brakes, no mods whatsoever. It even runs the standard Porsche geometry setup. So each owner that's had it just wanted that original experience of the car. Paint and panels are original, and then the all-important ECU data to record over revs is absolutely perfect as well. So yeah, if you're looking for the ultimate example of its type, obviously I would say so, but you know.
And how many miles has this done?
This one's just under 20,000, so 19,800 I think. Recently been serviced, MOT'd, and included obviously in our sale we do obviously the 3-hour inspection, which it's flown through again. So yeah, bit of a quick rundown there.
A lovely car.
Thanks, Tim.
Right, let's move on to the 997.
Yes.
Now, interestingly, all three of these models are Gen 2 versions of the car.
Yeah.
So this would have been from 2009, wouldn't it?
That's right. So this particular one is a 59 plate registered at the beginning of 2010. So again, Clubsport specification with absolutely no modifications. Only small tweak between the yellow and the red car is that the red GT3 runs the steel setup rather than the ceramic brakes. But otherwise, again, Clubsport, which included the same Nomex seats, roll cage, fire extinguisher, and so on and so forth. Clearly, when they went to 997, the power increased, so it went from a 3.6 to a 3.8. Small tweaks, sat nav improved and things like that. That's not really the reason that anyone buys these sorts of machines. But wheels went up 1 inch in diameter, and obviously were wider too. Everything bigger, faster, and stronger.
A lot of people love 997s, very analog car to drive.
Definitely, and also in terms of, we'll come on to it later, but you know the looks of the car changed back to the sort of the oval headlamp from the 996 design. But again, this particular car I've known I think about 6 years and supplied it twice before. Fully serviced with Porsche and RPM Technik as well. It included in the sale is also some preparation work, including servicing, fresh MOT like we do on all cars. But I mean, as you can see, you just put the key in and go and drive away in it now if you could.
And the mileage on this one?
And the mileage on this car has done 27,000 miles, so slightly more than sort of the very low collector grade stuff. But it's almost a great thing because you can use the car without any sort of conscience of, oh, I'm going to go over 10,000 miles and affect its value.
Well, a lot of people think that actually using these cars is the best way to maintain them.
Yes.
I'm assuming because it's on steel brakes, it hasn't been used continuously on track for 27,000 miles. It's been mainly a road car.
Absolutely, yes. Clearly the previous owner has done a couple of track days, and you know we're very forthright with explaining that so long as the car has been maintained properly and driven sympathetically at least, it's not a bad thing. It's a GT3 at the end of the day.
And it's a very strong engine. Yeah,
the last of the true Metzger engines, and it's very, very closely related to the engine that was in the Cup car of that era. Lots and lots of pluses that we will go into in a bit.
Thanks, Greg. Let's move on to the newest of the three GT3s, the 991.
Yes, so again, as you say, all these are 0.2s. And again, what's interesting is this was one of the 0.2s with the manual transmission, which obviously was very greatly received when Porsche brought it back in. So, yep, this car's been known to us as well, full Porsche service history. It's also got a Porsche warranty on it as well, which is good, which is running until 2022. Incidentally, you can still get a warranty on the 997s because Porsche warranties will run up until the car's 14 years old. Otherwise, we warrant them in-house rather than an insurance-backed warranty. But yes, you could take that car into Europe and, God forbid you had a problem, it would be covered there as well.
Yeah, it was interesting that people thought there wouldn't be a 991 with a manual box.
Yeah.
But Andreas Pruniger said, look, we've had such a good reaction to the GT4 in manual that we feel we should supply it.
Yeah.
And for that real enthusiast connection with the car, it is fantastic. No doubt PDK is faster as a gear change, but actually for the sheer enjoyment of driving on the road, the manual is fantastic. Yeah,
the interaction that 3 pedals give you and heel and toe, and clearly the car has the rev matching technology, which you can run it without. It just adds another dimension, and as you say, you'll never be as fast as the PDK, but arguably you might be having a bit more fun.
And this car, obviously with a 4-litre engine, a bit more power again.
Yes.
What's the history of this car?
So the previous owner of this car is a multiple GT Porsche owner, has had quite a few of them over the years, and as with a lot of these cars, the guys like to swap and change, so full Porsche history. But again, the beauty of something like this is it's just approaching 3 years old. They haven't really been used an awful lot, so it's done just under 5,000 miles. Arguably, the motor's probably not even run in yet.
Yeah. Well, 3 wonderful cars. I think the only thing fitting to do now is for you to give me the keys and I'll take them all for a drive.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So, interesting driving dynamics of the 3 cars. Obviously starting with the 996, it feels the most analogue of the 3 cars. It's almost the rawest of the experiences. It was the first of the GT3s, although this is Gen 2, it's the first of them. Yeah. And you really feel that.
Yeah, they're almost, it's absolutely crazy to think the earliest, the Mark 1s, are 20 years old. And I think the same. Whenever you drive them, they feel almost more like the air-cooled 911s in their, what we call their touch points, gear shift, brakes, steering. If you were to jump out of a modern 5 Series, it feels very weighty, doesn't it?
Yeah, and although there's only 50 kilos across the 3 cars,
it's mad, that, isn't it?
Feels, yeah, it is. It feels pretty light on its toes.
Yeah.
All the controls feel quite light. They haven't been dampened down by sort of modern sort of smoothness and weight. They feel really connected.
And I also think when you're sat in a 996, the architecture of the design, there's almost nothing in there. You've got a radio, you've got aircon, and you've got a steering wheel, and so your total attention is what's going on in front of you.
And the engine, 385 horsepower, but it revs really quickly.
Yeah.
You feel that connection on the throttle. It revs really quickly. It's a really responsive engine. It's the first sort of 911 that felt like it had the race engine in it.
And it's pretty close too, isn't it? I think it's almost the same as the Cup engine.
Moving on to the 997. First thing that dominates obviously is the 3.8 litre engine.
Yeah.
435 horsepower now, so we're really moving the game up. Not a lot more weight, but all round a more sophisticated car.
Yes, and I think that is absolutely spot on. Whenever we take people out in these, the first reaction is, oh, it's not quite as firm as I thought it would be. And on the 997 generation, it was the first where they introduced the PASM, the PASM as we call it for short. So you can knock between a softer setup and quite hard, which appeals to a lot of people. But generally inside the car as well, I always think they feel a bit more cosseting, there's a bit more sound deadening, it's a bit more civilised really.
Yeah, definitely. And with the 996, there aren't many buttons to press.
Nope.
You get in a 997 and you start to configure things a little bit more.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, I mean, you've got a sat-nav, which, let's be honest, is 10 years old now, so your mobile phone will be better. But do you know what? It'll take you across Europe, it'll do anything you want it to. But yeah, you're right, there's the sport button as well. And that changes the mapping of the throttle, allows the traction control a little bit of slip, and also makes the steering a wee bit heavier, more like the 996. But generally the car feels more grown up, and outright is obviously quite a bit faster too.
So the most modern iteration of our three GT3s, the 991 GT3, and again a step up in technology, a little step up in weight, but not much, but a really complete all-round car in terms of road driving and track driving.
Yeah, and with these, it's actually hard for us to demonstrate to people how competent they are.
The limits are quite high
on the road because, as you're fully aware as an owner as well, the car starts to do its best as you push it harder. So I've been out with people before, and their quick initial reaction is, well, it doesn't feel that much different to cars I've had before, C2Ss or whatever. But it's when you start pushing past 6/10 is where the suspension comes into its own, brakes do what they're supposed to, and also as you're bringing it out, as you know, the revs.
Yes, that last 1500 revs up to 9,000 revs is just mechanical sympathy. It's an absolute joy. It's a flat six Porsche engine at its absolute best, producing 500 horsepower, no turbocharging, really linear connection with the throttle. It's fantastic.
And what is quite incredible is that they still managed to get an engine that sounds that race-like through European emissions regs.
Yeah. I absolutely defy anybody to take this car to its rev limit and then tell me they prefer an electric vehicle.
Yeah, that's true. And having the manual box as well, each of them have a very different feel of gearbox. It's quite, an effort in that, and you've got to really concentrate. Very sweet in the 997. And this again is just a real delicate shift, and a lot lighter as well, I find, than in the 7s. Yeah,
there's more mechanical, the clutch is heavier in a 997, but a lot of people like that real feel of engagement to it.
Yes.
This is very servoed, very easy, which means, yes, it's great to drive on the road, very easy, but it's less strenuous as well.
Yeah, I think you could quite happily drive, I mean, depending on your opinion, drive them all, each of them daily. This you could quite happily drive as a daily, use as a daily driver. But the other thing is, with the wider front track that the 901's got, turn-in is obviously head and shoulders above the other two, isn't it?
Well, all elements of handling are improved, definitely. You've only got to look at the lap times a standard car like this can do on the track to see that.
Yeah, and we were astonished looking at the weight difference is 50 kilos from yellow to white, 120 horsepower. It's a big jump up.
It's a huge jump. So Greg, tell us about what the running costs of a 996 GT3 might be.
Well, being the oldest of the trio, the 996s actually can have quite manageable running costs, should we say. At the end of the day, it's a GT product, and there are some special items on the car. So one small example, if we take the lower arms, they're adjustable lower arms on a 996 GT3. However, they're an arm which is a lot cheaper than if you compare to the other two, by probably 50% cheaper. The flip side to that, being a 16-year-old car, a 15-year-old car, is that you can have issues with corrosion and worn out dampers and things like that. So GT3s of this era, no underseal, you have to be careful with those sorts of items. So, it's going to cost you a little bit more than, say, a 996 C2 to run, but the big consumable items, you've got to be on top of them. When it comes to clutch, brakes, tyres, again, very similar cost to a C2. So it's an affordable car to run if you get a good one.
Engines and gearboxes are things people worry about on GT3s?
Not on this era. They will probably outlast you and me. So the Metzger 3.6 in this, again, providing it's been driven sympathetically, no over revs, not lived its life at the limit. And even if it has, they tend to last very well. Same with the transmission, superbly over-engineered. It just tends to be the consumables that wear out, like Porsche designed them to.
So Greg, moving on to the 997 GT3,
Yep.
how do costs compare with the 996?
Well, they are a little bit more expensive, and that's probably no surprise. The car's faster, it's slightly bigger, very marginally heavier, not an awful lot. But you know, starting off with the simple items, like you've got tyres that are an inch bigger than on the 996. The clutch and the other sort of drivetrain parts are handling more power, so they are a little bit more expensive. And same with suspension components. You know, we've got a PASM system, as we said here, so an adjustable damper, which by nature of it being more complex has a little bit more going on and therefore higher costs. The general car itself, again, they're cut from granite. You know, engines are absolutely brilliant, transmissions are very, very strong, and the actual body seems to be a bit better resistant to corrosion, being younger, but Porsche improving their technologies by then. So, you know, if we were saying, say, 1,500 to 1,800 a year to run the GT3 996 on average over, say, a 5-year period each year, you would probably be, by and large, about the same on this, but certain components, like we were talking about, lower arms, are just a bit bigger, a bit beefier, quite a bit more expensive on the 997. But the good thing is, you know, the average mileage that one of these cars does a year is maybe 3 to 5k, and those components can do 30k. So, you know, you have a bigger cost, but it lasts a decent time.
Are the service intervals longer with a newer generation car?
Well, technically, so that car being a 0.2, the yellow car being a 0.2, the service is 2 years and 12k, and it's the same on this.
Okay.
Good point though. We actually would recommend with this type of machine that an annual oil change is just, well, you know,
I do
don't
it,
you?
yeah.
It's a no-brainer because it's a lot of power out of that engine, and just having a professional checking over the car to make sure it's all good health.
Excellent. Current 991 generation GT3s, obviously a lot of them are covered by manufacturer warranty still. Does that affect people's buying decisions through yourselves or their operating costs?
Yes, is the answer. I suppose it's the easiest car to purchase from the fear factor. You know, no one wants to buy a bad one, clearly, and so with the cars of this age, the manufacturer warranty, God forbid you had one of the the big items, engine or transmission, have an issue, it's covered. So it's easy to buy, and that's covered across the whole of the UK and Europe. And still most of them have breakdown recovery on them as well. So it's a low risk purchase from that point of view, and again, with a lot of these cars hardly covering any miles and just been used as weekend toys, they've not really seen much of a life yet. No. The tyres, brakes, etc., you still have to keep on top of those because they're a powerful machine and it can eat through them quite quickly. So far we're just looking at basic, serviceable items, and obviously servicing. The servicing's every 2 years and 12 on these as well. But most owners like yourself will change the oil annually just to keep on top of things. So no, it's an easy car to live with. You could drive it every day, as we said, and compared to the other two, just like the other two, Porsche have done a very good job with these. So no, the ownership is easy from that point of view.
So in conclusion of this video, we have to talk about future values and ownership.
Yep.
Where do you think these models will stand given time?
Well, it's probably the first, as much as anyone says, it is probably one of the first deciding factors on which one someone buys, because they will have a slightly different price point. So at the moment, you've got 996s anywhere from sort of 60 to 80 for a Clubsport at least. They made very few of these, so Clubsports in particular, so they made about, I think, 220 of the 996.2s for the UK, so a really small number, and apparently only about 70 were clubbies. So when you look at that statistic, long term, I think they're probably quite a safe place, as much as anything can be for your money. In the short to medium term, as with anything, my advice to anyone is buy it because you love it. Yeah. Because there's going to be ups and downs over the next 12, 18 months with everything going on. If you're in a car that you love, it drops a few quid and you just got to ride it out for a bit, so be it. You
still own the car.
Exactly, and you own a great car. So I think with the 996, you're fairly safe. And to be fair, the three cars are linked because they're the same model.
Obviously, more 997s were built.
Correct. More 997s were built, and when you then look at the Phase 2, the 09 to 12 car, arguably it's one of the greatest Porsches ever built. A lot of people rate the 4-litre RS as the ultimate car. It's very similar to that, so that's always going to have that very special dynamic. As you say, numbers are limited. they're never going to build that type of engine again, obviously with Mr. Metzger sadly no longer with us, and that is probably its USP is the motor in this, and that they're a petite car still. These two are quite similar in size, aren't they?
Probably the hardest one actually is the most current car.
Yeah, I mean, what we've found over the last 18 months is that we've had a return of drivers. People aren't speculating on these cars because they've come down. You know, we were trading these 12 months ago at probably 15k, 20k more than they are now. And what that has meant is that more of them are being used and enjoyed. And you know what? They're still at just below what they were brand new, which is pretty good. So we're finding that ladies and gentlemen that are buying these are using them long term and looking to keep them and drive them. So I think it's got a little bit to settle in the short to medium, and then long term it'll probably come back up.
So Greg, thank you very much indeed. We really couldn't let this unique opportunity to compare 3 generations of GT3 pass us by, and it's been fascinating. Obviously all of these 3 cars are for sale, so if you are interested and want some more details, talk to Greg personally here at RPM Technik. And if you've had any other topics or comparisons you'd like to see us do, please leave details in the comments below. But overall, we hope you've enjoyed the video.